Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney, and today is Wednesday, March 23rd. Thanks for being here for the top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. These are the stories that are the most important stories to you here in Northeast Ohio, the stories that matter most, because these are the stories that you're clicking on, sharing, and reading from our website and our app. So let's start with an important weather update for people across Northeast Ohio. There's a severe thunderstorm watch and also a tornado watch issued for several counties here in Northeast Ohio. The National Weather Service has issued a tornado watch for the following counties: Ashland, Holmes, Mahoning, Stark, Tuscarawas, and Wayne counties. That's through 10 p.m. tonight. There is also a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for Erie, Huron, and Richland counties, and that's until 9 p.m. tonight. Otherwise, scattered severe thunderstorms are possible this afternoon and early evening, and there will be damaging wind gusts, also damaging hail as the main threats. But a tornado or two are definitely possible. The greatest severe storm risk that exists along and west of I-77. So our meteorologist Holly Strano said, as we get into the evening, we see numerous storm potential, and we cannot rule out a strong to severe storm even here in the Northeast Ohio area. It's going to be very windy throughout Northeast Ohio as well. Expected wind gusts could be between 20 and 30 miles per hour sustainably, and then gusts could be even stronger. So keep an eye on that weather today. And also, some breaking news out this afternoon. Madeleine Albright, who was the first female U.S. Secretary of State in the U.S., has died at the age of 84, and her family is saying that that is due to cancer. Now, President Bill Clinton chose Albright as the top diplomat. That was in 1996, and she had served in that capacity for 4 years in the Clinton administration. Prior to that, she was Clinton's ambassador to the United Nations. Now, at the time when she was Secretary of State, she was the highest-ranking woman in the history of the U.S. government. She was, however, not in the line of succession for presidency because she was a native of Czechoslovakia, born in Prague. So here's a statement from her family today, which was released on social media. She was surrounded by family and friends. We have lost a loving mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, and friend. That was her family's comment today. Our thoughts are with them as they celebrate the life of the iconic Madeleine Albright. Now, in international news, the U.S. has now formally declared that Russian troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine. This is a serious moment today. There was a formal determination made today, and that was announced by Secretary of State Antony Blinken. That was in a statement that was released as he's traveling to Brussels with President Joe Biden for an emergency summit of NATO leaders. He went on to say that we have seen numerous credible reports of indiscriminate attacks and attacks deliberately targeting civilians. So not only those indiscriminate attacks, meaning attacks that are just random, no particular focus, but also deliberately targeting civilians and other atrocities. Direct quote from him: Russia's forces have destroyed apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, critical infrastructure, civilian vehicles, shopping centers, and ambulances, leaving thousands of innocent civilians killed or wounded. He went on to say that attacks on the civilian population in the city of Mariupol were a major issue here, also mentioning attacks elsewhere. And this was based on a careful review of public and intelligence sources since Russia started its invasion of Ukraine last month, and this has been going on for nearly a month now. The U.S. is expected to share this information with allies, partners, and international institutions that are tasked with investigating allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, here at home today, if you watched What's Next last night at 11 p.m. on 3, you might have caught the story remembering USAir Flight 405 30 years later. A survivor here from Cleveland talked about that because it was on March 22nd, 1992, so 30 years ago yesterday, that a commercial flight on its way to Cleveland, taking off out of New York, crashed and killed 27 people less than a minute after taking off. And Bart Simon, who lives in Shaker Heights, was one of just 24 survivors, so less than half of the people on that flight survived. He was a passenger heading home. That flight was delayed. It finally took off that night. It was headed to Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. It came down almost as soon as it went up, 30 seconds after wheels up on that tarmac. So And speaking to our 3 News' Laura Queso today, he said when the pilot took off, there was ice on the left wing and it didn't get any lift, so the plane just went off the edge of the runway and down into the bay. And in the aftermath of that, he described what that was like. He said the plane cracked open like an egg. He said he was very disoriented. He ran out and then he found out that he was running into water, and that water was just 28 degrees because it was March at the time. He said he saw fire lighting up the scene, climbed up the rocks to get back onto the runway, but the scene around him was pretty difficult. He describes that in more detail on WKYC.com. You can check that out. But he said it was pretty hard for him to come to terms with the fact that he was seated at the window. He was seated in seat 4F, and the people who were seated next to him in seats 4D and 4E did not make it. And he said that was something that was tough for him to come to terms with. He talked with us here at 3 News 30 years ago and spoke about that the day after the fact. Now, if you want to see more about what his life has been like since then and how he's taken the time that he's had in the last 30 years, you can see that on WKYC.com. Really powerful story there. Now, today, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine gave the State of the State address, and he had some comments to say, and he opened that by saying, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes," sending a message of hope to the people of Ukraine who we just talked about are experiencing absolute atrocities at the hand of Russian forces. And this is the first State of the State speech that Governor DeWine has been able to deliver in its usual format since March 5th, 2019, because it's been canceled for the past 2 years because of COVID-19. And he praised people here in Ohio for the response to COVID-19, saying that Ohioans really rallied together. He talked about jobs and manufacturing, saying our unemployment rate is at 4.3%, which is a near historic low. Talked about manufacturing flourishing here, and his takeaway was there's great quality of life in Ohio. This is a quote from Governor DeWine. No matter where you live in Ohio, you're within driving distance of amazing art, great theater, major league sports, and there's education. We have 14 public universities, great universities, 74 amazing private colleges and universities, 23 community colleges, and a host of great career centers all over the state of Ohio. We have a world-class state fair that is back this year. He said this, "There's simply no better place to raise a family than Ohio." And you can see more takeaways from that State of the speech on WKYC.com. But speaking of raising a family, May 4th is coming up. If you are a Star Wars fan, you know that is widely considered to be Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. You get it. You don't need me to spell it out. Well, the city of Akron is putting a unique spin on Star Wars Day by offering weddings that are Star Wars themed this year. And those weddings will take place at Highland Square Theater on West Market Street. They'll be between 10 and noon that day. There's free parking, by the way. We've got those details on WKYC.com. Now, these appointments are first come, first served. So you need to schedule and pay for your appointment ahead of time if you want to get your wedding in on May the 4th on Star Wars Day in Akron. So keep that in mind. And then they will open more time slots once those appointments are filled. So if you go there and the appointments are all filled and you have your heart set on a Star Wars wedding in Akron on May the 4th, check back because they will open more appointments as those appointments get booked. But remember, before the wedding itself, you do have to get a marriage license, and you have to get that from the Summit County Probate Court. If you live in the jurisdiction of the court, it's $25. But if you live outside the jurisdiction, it's $40. So anybody can take advantage of getting married on Star Wars Day in Akron on May the 4th. It'll just cost you 15 extra bucks. Speaking of money and budgetary concerns, San Francisco Giants outfielder Jock Peterson is taking a shot at the Guardians. He says that they are not spending enough money. And if you look at the rankings, you know, somebody has to be last when it comes to payroll. If you're ranking 30 teams, yes, someone has to come in last. The Guardians don't come in last, but they are in the bottom 3. And the point that Peterson was making is there's a huge disparity between the top 3 teams and their payroll in baseball and the bottom 3 teams. He said that fans should be embarrassed by this lack of spending. But here's the rundown. The top 3 teams, okay? The Dodgers spend $270 million. You can field a pretty good team for that. The Mets spend almost $250 million. The Yankees spend about $236 million. So coast to coast, right? California and New York. Well, the bottom 3, number 28 is the Guardians. So not last, but third to last. The Guardians spend $35.6 million. So that's a difference of about $234 million right there. The Pirates spend $35.3 million and the Orioles spend $30.3 million. So that's very concentrated here. You know, Ohio's considered the Midwest and the East Coast. Here's what Peterson said. This was his tweet. Embarrassed for your fan base. Be better. If you can't sell your team to somebody that wants to show the fan base in baseball they're at least trying to compete. Sorry, unacceptable. I will say, for the little bit of money that they do spend, the Guardians, formerly of a different name, have been able to compete. They do make a pretty good showing with what they do have, but they do not spend the money. It's tough to hang on to those big players for sure. The Guardians will be opening up the season in Kansas City on April 7th. That home opener here in Cleveland is April 15th, and that is a Friday night game at 7 p.m. Now, speaking of games and who plays for who and who gets paid what, there's some talk, at least online, of Odell Beckham Jr. potentially coming back to the Browns because someone tweeted at him on Tuesday talking about would it be possible for him to come back to the Browns because, you know, he's a free agent right now. And his response was, LOL, that's an interesting one. So he didn't rule it out, but he didn't say that he was super excited about that idea either. You know, it was 4 months ago that the Browns released Odell Beckham Jr. and that he ended up getting picked up by the Los Angeles Rams, and he did have a key role in them winning the Super Bowl. So he got a Super Bowl ring out of the situation, but he did also get injured in that game. So that is that's something there. You know, he suffered a torn ACL in his left knee. That's the same thing that ended his season in 2022. So something to consider. So if he might be willing to return to Cleveland, I don't know. Hard to say. You know, there were lots of reports that he had a lot of friction with Cleveland Browns Baker Mayfield. It does look like that relationship will be coming to an end. And Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Cabot has also reported that Cleveland is interested in re-signing Beckham's close friend, Jarvis Landry, who got released last week when they couldn't come to terms on renegotiating or reconfiguring that contract. But I will also say the Rams have made it publicly known that they are interested in re-signing Odell Beckham Jr. So lots to come. We will see what happens. Free agency is always an interesting time of the year. And today, we will end things on a positive note. Today is National Puppy Day and want to show off your puppy picture, so you can send those to us a lot of different ways. You can comment on one of our posts on social media. You can text your puppy picture or texting to 216-344-3300. You can send us pictures and videos through the WKYC app using that Near Me feature. I'll be sharing your puppy pictures today on the 5 p.m. show in the Clicking in Cleveland segment. So this is kind of like your last call. Get those puppy pictures in so that we can highlight them on TV today. And we're also, sharing them on social media. Puppy pictures, remember. I know we all think of our animals as puppies for sure. Mr. Harry Winston, my guy, he's 13 and a half years old almost. I think of him as a puppy, but we do really want to see that puppy face. So if you've got an older dog, send a throwback. I would love to see your older pup as a puppy. All right, that's it for your 3 News Now update today for Wednesday, March 23rd. I will see you all back here tomorrow with more 3 News Now.